Our next panel session is on regional migration of Pakistani women to Gulf states, which is influenced by a myriad of economic, social, and cultural factors. We aim to understand the unique context of Pakistan and how it impacts women's migration choices. We welcome back today Ms. Sabina Ahmad, a seasoned professional with extensive experience in strategy advisory, specializing in labor markets, TVET, workforce development, and gender. My next question is to you, Sabina. Sabina, welcome back. When we talk about, in context particularly of Pakistan, there are a lot of social and cultural considerations that need to be taken account. So what social and cultural considerations particularly impact women's decisions to migrate to Gulf countries?
So there will be two shades to this. There are obviously the economic drivers. A lot of people will migrate for economic reasons. We did hear yesterday that there are many other reasons for migration, crisis induced, for example. But the focus generally, we've been talking about economic migration. So obviously the biggest driver is economics. Women would migrate for reasons to escape poverty, to, there are low employment opportunities here. If you migrate, you probably get better wages within the same occupation.
Okay.
So that would be one reason. However, and when you look at the migration patterns from Pakistan, particularly for women, you see there is this high end of spectrum where highly skilled women will go, primarily as doctors, for example.
Right.
And then you will look at the lower spectrum, almost the same numbers, maybe more because there would be a little more undocumented numbers there, which go in the care industry and domestic work, as we say. So I was just, sir, we talked about data yesterday. I was trying to look up figures, just trying to see where women go, who are those women. The only thing that I could find was that, the cumulative numbers that we see on the BEOE website, and these are OEC and BEOE numbers combined. They say that between 1970 and 2019, about 40,807 women migrated. That's the documented number you see. This comes to less than 1,000 a year. And we know from anecdotal evidence that that might not be the case. Where do they go? Almost 42% go to UAE, 35% something go to KSA, and the rest is divided between different countries. So again, a bulk of women, again, on the higher end of the spectrum, they go as doctors, nurses, engineers, computer professionals, and in the care industry. And there is this category called the journal workers. Again, I would say they would not be highly skilled people. This is a significant number too. So that's where they go. So the economics, obviously, but because we're talking about women, there is also very strong socio-cultural drivers which, make women migrate. One of the things that comes across is that the agency to make that decision, if to migrate and where to migrate, is not entirely women's. So from what we know, women migrate because there is family pressure for them to migrate, because they are asked to migrate. It's not necessarily their own choice. There are women who will, again, I will make the distinction, women who will choose to do this more independently because of career progression, but then there is also a lot of them who will not be making this decision independently. When this decision is made, there are many factors that they go in. This will not be the case for men. For example, the age of the woman. We know from yesterday also that there is a bar of 35 years of age when women go for migrant work. So there is the age factor. Then their marital status. If they are married, if they are single, that is a very big a driver in that decision. The other thing is who will take care of the care responsibilities that they have at home. So somebody needs to be there to take over that work so that these women can go. So there are lots of drivers, and any policy, anything that we want to make to encourage safe migration, it can't be seen only from the economic point of view. There are lots of cultural undertones in this, and they need to be taken into consideration when we are since it's a policy dialogue, and that's what we would be talking about, we have been talking about. So these are the two dimensions, I think, that need to be looked at in totality, so that whatever we decide then, the policies we formulate, they are more needs specific and migrant women focused.
And do you think, if I could just extend the question, do you think also with the current, with the recent reforms that are taking place in the destination countries, if we talk about KSA and the Middle Eastern countries, which are now more open and a little more conducive to the kind of opportunities that are being provided to women, because that was also a limitation earlier. Do you think that would also change the pattern of migration for women from Pakistan?
So that would be the pull factor, definitely. But then we also need to see, are we really preparing our women to exactly for them?
So picking up on what lastly Dr. Arif Azad said, that if the numbers were to increase, then the number of issues or the kind of issues that women are currently facing would possibly decrease. Is that a perspective that you'd like to shed light on?
Definitely, as the awareness increases, as the preparedness increases, we will definitely see some change in terms of the challenges that we have currently. If I were to sort of talk about what challenges they might have at this point, and then we see, like what could be done to address those. The first is, again, a bulk of the women who go are survival-driven migrants. So obviously that places them in a situation where it's not easy for them to safe migration becomes challenging. Formal institutionalized support becomes difficult because they might choose, as Sir just mentioned, if we have a 35 years age bar, that will perhaps not deter women who are going to go in any way. They will just choose a means which is not safe, which is irregular. We also talked about this yesterday, that a lot of women from Pakistan, especially when they go in the low skill industry, they would not go through institutional mechanisms. They will go through referrals. There will be, other people out there, families they know, friends they know, relatives they know, who will just, bring them in and not through the formalized channels. Yeah. So this kind of puts them in sort of greater at risk of exploitation, work conditions, wage, mobility, all those challenges kind of kick in. Then again, one of the things I think is a consistent barrier, and Sir or Dr. have already mentioned how you kind of address is that there is no, one thing is awareness about the potential employment opportunities. The other is also general awareness about rights and entitlements. We did speak in the earlier panel about, sort of pre-departure preparation and people being oriented about, Farooq Jamal Saab referred to, people being oriented about the laws and the legal systems in the countries of destination so that people are prepared. I don't know how much of that is actually applicable to women right now, considering that a lot of women might not be using the institutional channels to go. So that awareness about rights, entitlements, and protection mechanisms, once they are there, who do they reach out to? So that these are some of the things. I think these would be the barriers, and obviously as we increase awareness, there is more sensitization, especially when we are making policies. That's where I think these issues might be addressed.
Yes, please, Sabina.
Can I just add one thing? So when we're talking about the policy, I think one thing we probably need to keep checking ourselves usually the context of or the discourse is around how do we manage this whole process, the migration process. It's more about it's not migrant focused. We are just looking out for management. This is also the case when we talk about the youth in this country. We have this demographic, sort of dividend or bulge. How do we manage this? Because it's going to be a problem. So that's usually our approach to things. There is a problem and it needs to be managed. I think that if we change the shift in policy, not just look at now that the people are there, however they are there irregularly, now we really need to manage that. How about we just fix the pipeline? I mean, we make sure that they are prepared before they go to the employable sectors which have potential, they have awareness about their rights, and so that preparedness I think needs to be part of things. One thing particularly on the recruitment side of things, so we talked about the role of private promoters, we talked about how institutional mechanisms are out there and they can be accessed. I think the role of the service provider, the training service providers here needs to be really highlighted. From what we know, as you said, Dr. Saab, they might not be doing this when they train people, women particularly, it might not have the focus that these women eventually will migrate to other countries or go abroad. So that focus is not there, and obviously then we are not even linking. But that awareness, if that could also be shared, we have career counseling offices in many of the service providers. We have job placement offices. They do provide information about employable sectors and industries in Pakistan. How about we also start talking about this? This is the potential for women, in those countries. So the mechanisms which already exist, if they could be leveraged. I know also about the PGFRC, the centers set up by the project. They also they have a helpline. They provide information, if you call them, about. So these channels need to be more sort of strengthened, and the access needs to be, sort of broadened. Not just the digital means, because we know digital access, might not be the case for all women, but other, sort of more conventional ways, job fairs, employment, sort of information in colleges, universities, where we just kind of go and talk about this.
So not just reactive responses, but reactive preemptive measures, which by this time we have enough data to understand what can be preemptively done. Okay, fantastic. And I'd like to thank our guests for their insights, very invaluable. Thank you very much.